Yo, 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 hello, and welcome back to the Lenko Show. This is episode number 82. And today I'm going to be digging into the 6 ways in which we beat ourselves. So, having a little look at some of the little mind games that go on in between our own ears. And if we can control those, we can control our performance. Once again, I am joined by the dog who's currently having a wonderful time ripping up a big roll of tissue paper. He's already run off into the bathroom and stolen the toilet rolls, and now he's getting started on tissue paper. So he's enjoying himself. I'm going to actually get stuck in on a slightly different note to what I usually do this time. So I've got a recipe for you. I will be sharing that. Then I'm going to go through some of the preferred exercises I've got at the moment, some that are featuring quite heavily in my programming at the minute. And then another question, this was based on I was sent, sorry, the dog was literally just trying to rip up a big roll of wrapping paper, which would not be good ahead of Christmas. So I think I might move that. There we go. Get that out of the way. Sorry, dog, but you can't get away with that kind of thing. So I'm going to go through a video which I was sent with an explosive, in quotes, exercise. And it was done in a kneeling position. So I'm going to go through why I hate that and why I really don't like that idea. I know every coach has their own philosophy of their own understanding, their own reasoning for doing certain things, their own rationale. And for me, I'm just going to explain a little bit more about mine and why I don't like it and why I prescribe other things typically when it comes to developing power and explosivity. So first off, the recipe. So this is something that I frequently cook, right? I'm actually not a bad cook, believe it or not. I've been questioned on this, and people have accused me of simply getting the missus and getting the wife to do these things for me. So if you ever see a recipe on Instagram that we've done, typically they go, "Oh, you didn't even cook it. You got your wife to do it." So she does help out sometimes, but this one was 100% me. It was her idea, so I put it together. A couple of slight little uh, twists in it from the original recipe. But anyway, all you need, 3 chicken breasts, 100 grams of cooked chorizo. Recommend cook the chorizo in the pan, get it all nice and oily, get the oils coming out of the chorizo, then add in the chicken, cook that together so the chicken gets a real nice coating with the chorizo. Then you just need some pesto. So we use sun-dried tomato pesto. Then we got some sun-dried tomatoes, like the little olive style things with a bit of oil in. I think we got maybe 2 packets of that, 2 packets of those. And then a bit of garlic, a little bit of basil, and we mixed in some double cream as well. And then we also threw in some spinach. So basically just chuck it all in. Like, this is a 1 pot pasta dish, right? Cook your pasta. Say it's a 1 pot pasta dish. I've just completely fucked you up there, haven't I? It's not really a 1 pot. Like, you need another pot to cook your pasta. So cook your pasta separate. Put your chorizo, your chicken, your basil, your garlic, all in the same pot. Cook all of that together. You can just fry that off. And then once that's done, mix in the spinach, mix in the pesto, then add in, I think we mixed in about 300 milliliters of cream, but for this kind of recipe, for ours, we did 6 chicken breasts and we did like 200 grams of chorizo. So obviously apply it according to that. But I'd recommend about 150 mils to 200 mils of double cream if you're going to do about 3 chicken breasts. Mix all that in the same pot, get that simmering away, stir it all in. Once you've done the pasta, put the pasta in with the sauce that you've made in with the chicken, in with the chorizo. Mix it all together, serve it up, and boom. That is absolutely, honestly, it was absolutely perfect. Oh, the other thing that we did throw in there as well was a packet of cherry tomatoes. I would highly recommend adding those in as well. So you've got the sun-dried tomatoes and the cherry tomatoes and the sun-dried tomato pesto as well, which is a lovely little combination all in all. So if you go and try that, let me know. Drop me a message on Instagram, and let me know how that goes for you. I will try and post up either probably the picture. I didn't get a video of the of the actual process. But we'll try and share that at some point. I'm not very good on sharing the foodie stuff. That's typically not my gig. I'm more into the exercises. So speaking of exercises, I'm going to tell you some of my preferred exercises at the minute and why. So one of the things I'm actually finding really, really useful at the minute, I'm really enjoying, I'm throwing them in a warm up with an empty bar, and I'm actually adding a little bit of weight to some of them sometimes as part of an accessory sequence, is barbell good mornings. Really, really like it's a hinge exercise that I've probably bashed a little bit at times. Like when it comes to training glutes and hamstrings, I've kind of gone, oh, there's much safer ways of doing it and blah, blah, blah. However, from taking a little bit longer with it, spending a bit more time with it, playing around with it and experimenting with it a little bit more. And I've actually found that you get there is a lot of core work that goes into being able to do a good morning properly. And there is very little negative as well. I think a lot of the time my predisposition to not liking them was because you're kind of loading up a barbell on your neck and then you're hinging forwards, and you're essentially possibly, if you do it wrong, exposing yourself to some pretty extreme consequences, which you don't really need to do. But if you do them properly, you do them well, very, 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 very effective and a great little change up from your regular Romanian deadlifts or your various other hamstring and posterior chain exercises. So good mornings are 100% in the program at the minute, and I'm actually really, really liking them. And I feel like like I said, I get a ton of core work done when it comes to that as well. The next one, deficit calf raises. A couple of different ways that you can do this. So we've got in our gym, we've got a specific ramp, and we've also got a few little heel blocks, which are at various inclinations, various inclines, but allows you to really drop the heel, get a stretch in the calf, increase the amount of dorsiflexion that you can get. So really, really useful for full range of movement through the ankle. And given my ankle injury history, with the broken one, that's typically really the only time it's gone wrong. Actually being a really useful exercise for me to actually strengthen and develop calf and the soleus. So I've been throwing those in sometimes actually at the start of a workout, especially if I'm doing legs, just to help get more mobility in the ankle through when it comes to squatting, and then even at the end is like a bit of an exhaustion thing and getting a bit of a pump on, because they can tolerate quite a lot, but they have to deal with a lot as well when it comes to sport, change of direction, absorbing force. Typically, if you're sprinting at full speed, you put in about 7.5 to 8 times your body weight and more through the ankle. So you need to be able to tolerate it. You need to build up your resistance and your tolerance to that force. So deficit calf raises, and you can also do these. So like when I've been doing these, I've been leaning forwards, keeping a straight line from the heel through the knee into the hip and then through into the shoulder, leaning the hips in towards the wall or the bar or whatever it is I'm supporting myself against to make sure that I can get the deep stretch, and then I'm able to push up through full range. But the other slight twist and the other slight tweak that you can do is you can then start to bend the knee and really target the soleus specifically with it. So those two are exercises that I'm thoroughly enjoying at the minute. One that I'm actually hating are side plank hip raises. It's just one of those where I can't really even explain why I don't like it that much, but it's one where whenever I see it in my program, I think, why the fuck have I put that in there? But you've got to do the things that you don't like sometimes and do the things that make you uncomfortable. So they get done anyway. Now, moving on to why I hate explosive exercises from kneeling, because there isn't really a situation in the sporting environment, unless you're doing MMA or jiu-jitsu or something, where you might end up on your knees or compromised in that kind of position. If you're on your knees and you're off your feet, you're typically out of the game in field sports, whether it's football, rugby, hockey, American football, anything that comes through changing direction and being explosive. Typically, we talk a lot as coaches about triple extension. So we're talking about extension of the hip, knee, and ankle joint. in sequence or at the same time. For example, jumping, or if you're sprinting, you're hitting the deck and you're extending through your knee and you're pushing back through the hip. That is the combination. That's the movement pattern. It's that triple extension pattern that is going to lead you to being more and more explosive. And simply being in a kneeling position, performing an exercise, you're taking away two components of that. You're taking away the knee extension, and you're also taking away the plantar flexion through the ankle. So the only thing that you're really doing is extending at the hips. Well, depending on what you're trying to achieve, there might be simple ways to go and do it. But I think there was a specific exercise that I saw where I just thought, so just kind of put it into context for you, if you can try and visualize and remember back to it. It was a guy kneeling down, he's holding a medicine ball by his knees. Both knees are on the floor, so it's not even a half kneeling position. And as he raises the medicine ball up in a fast movement, he brings one of the knees up and puts it into the half kneeling position. So he's then 90 degrees of the hip and 90 degrees of the knee. And for me, I just watched it. I looked at it. I thought, genuinely, I would have to speak to the coach as to why that would be useful, because I cannot visualize a context in which that would be a useful exercise. That's my personal take on it. I wouldn't do it. If I wanted to train someone for explosivity in a half kneeling position or in a kneeling position, I would probably stick specifically to throwing, where you're working on getting rotation through the torso and you're generating speed through the upper body, if you really wanted to focus on that. But I don't understand why that would be more beneficial than simply being on 2 feet in a split stance and then throwing or launching something similar to that. If you wanted to train sort of a bilateral press movement, if you wanted to kneel down and push throw a medicine ball for maximal distance or against the wall, I would see that as pretty much acceptable. Again, no reason why you couldn't do that in a standing position and generate more force from that, or even in a split stance position. Again, training and drilling those movements into the overall sequence is typically what we as coaches will do. You can take things in isolation, but for me, that's normally if you're at a rehab phase or there is a very specific problem you're trying to fix. And then the other one, probably one that I have programmed more than anything else for power from a kneeling position. And there's so many different ways to do it. And typically it all comes from being in a standing position or pushing through your foot. The only other variation I would do for it would be a half kneeling acceleration. So you're down on one knee and you would either accelerate in a straight line, straight ahead, or you might even push off from a lateral position. So for instance, if you're half kneeling position with your left knee on the floor, your right knee up, you might then push through your right foot and take off to your left hand side. And that is simply done. The way that I program that is to kind of keep that body lean low and make sure you've got that positive shin angle. There's a couple of ways that you can mess it up by actually just pushing straight up and standing straight up. So if you've got a vertical shin angle, that's where all the force is going to go. You might as well jump. If you want to travel forwards, you need to be able to drop your hips forward, let your knee go forward, dorsiflex your ankle, and generate that positive shin angle. So that's where the half kneeling positions come into play for some of the stuff that I do with my guys and some of the things that I program. But typically there isn't much more that I would program on top of that in terms of kneeling exercises. Generally don't like them. And one of the reasons I really don't like them is if you're kneeling, your ability to pivot, rotate, that gets taken away. All right. The part of the foot and part of the job of the foot and balance through the ankle is you got a bit more movement, especially compared to the knee, which is a pretty simple hinge joint. You can pivot, you can rotate, and your ability to apply force into the ground through the ankle means that the force dissipates into the ground. Whereas putting it through the knees, again, because you can't extend there, all that rebound, you kind of just punching it straight into the middle of your lower back. And yeah, my personal take on it is that it's not useful. I don't like it. And I've never really been a fan of just kneeling down all the time anyway. Like, I mean, it can hurt. It can be quite painful. It's just quite irritating. It's not a useful position to be in on a sports pitch or sporting pitch, sports field. So I typically would stay away from it. Anyway, now that we're through that, I'm gonna go through to the title of what this podcast is about. So it's this kind of like the 6 ways that you mentally beat yourself up. I'm just going to list off all 6, and then if you decide you don't want to listen to any more and listen to the solutions, then feel free. But number 1, we're going to, one of the ways you can seriously mess yourself up is to frequently talk about your bad performances. Reminding yourself of when you fucked up or what you've done in the past that didn't work. Even for your team, like, oh God, at the minute, Man United are looking at going to Anfield at the weekend with half a squad that's not performing. Morale is, God knows what's happening with morale in the team. The work ethic, I'm not looking forward to it as a supporter. And I think the last time we were there, we got pumped 7-0. We got absolutely smacked. So obviously there will be a lot of talk about that, but hopefully in the training ground, that is not going to happen. We're going to be thinking and talking about how we can beat them, what we can do. I'm not looking forward to it. It's probably going to be, I wouldn't bet against it being more than 5 for Liverpool, unfortunately. It's painful to say. It's painful. Anyway, number 2, someone else talks about our bad performances and we tune in and we take part. I'll come to the solutions for you next. Number 3, just frequently complain in general. Whinge, whine, moan, do the Bruno Fernandes, complain about anything and everything. Number 4, listen to someone else complain. Number 5, get angry at bad behavior. And then number 6, beat ourselves down and belittle ourselves frequently for, I would say, bad behaviors. So number 1, the solution to number 1, frequently talking about bad performances. Once it happens, deal with it. It's gone. Get over it. Review, reflect on it one time only. Look at it through the lens of what can you do differently? What can I do differently? How can I be better? How can I be better either in my performance or my preparation leading into it? And ultimately take ownership of your performance. Be responsible for yourself and be responsible for your team. And as soon as you start to look at it through that lens, not only does it elevate you into more of into a strengthened position as a leader for your own career and your own development and your own pathway, but also as a leader within that team environment. If you can look at it through the lens of, right, how can we be better? What can we do? I can do this. You can do that. What else do you think we could do together? You start to solve problems. If you're losing, you need to solve problems. You need to solve problems more urgently than teams that are winning. So review it once, get it dealt with, then bin it. Have a short-term memory. That's crucial. When it comes to performing on a regular basis, have a short-term memory if it's a defeat or if it's a bad performance. Especially if you know you're not a bad player. We all have off days. Let it go. Number 2, someone else talks about bad performances and we tune in, right? This is important because you can't, there will always be naysayers. If you're present or if you go and engage in it, if you actively seek out negative comments on social media, I would suggest you're a bit of a fool for doing that. But if you're present and there's a verbal conversation going on, someone else is talking about it, find any way you possibly can to kill the conversation. Owning it is very, very simply the best way to do that. So for us, we do this in American football all the time where we'll review film, coach will pick something out and you're like, oh, fucking hell. And even as the game goes on, you know that particular moment's coming up, you start to kind of sink into your chair and just think, fuck, it's me next. And when they pick it out, very simply, the answer might just be, look, I'm an idiot, shouldn't have done that, should have done this. Cool, move on. Conversation done. If you're walking on a group of other people bitching and moaning about you, you can go, yeah, it was shit, but I've moved on. I know how to deal with it. What's your problem? Deal with it. Nip it in the bud. Front up to it. Don't turn a blind eye to it. Don't turn your ear on it. Don't turn your back on it. Have the conversation. Get it out in the open. Be confrontational about it. It's your performance. You own it. You don't need to concede the right to anybody else to be able to say things about the way you perform, the way you go about your business. Deal with it. Handle the situation. The other thing that you could do is you could also remind them of things that you've done well in the past and times where you have been in a similar situation and you've actually absolutely nailed it. So wouldn't hang your hat on one bad performance, especially if you're a frequent performer. Number 3, frequently complain, right? You can be upset one time very briefly and then you need to fucking fix it. Don't sit there whinging and whining about the same thing over and over again. If it keeps happening over and over again, and you keep complaining about it over and over again and not doing anything about it over and over again, you're an idiot. You need to fix that. That's on you. Ownership, again, plays a huge role in what you need to do as an athlete to develop yourself and also to help your team. I mean, for me, people who sit around doing nothing but crying all the time, they are zero use. I mean, I always think about, like, if you're on a battlefield, if you're in a foxhole and you're having shit blowing up around you and people shooting at you, who do you want in the foxhole with you? Do you want someone that's dependable, that you can trust, that you know is going to turn around and fight and ultimately be aggressive and go at the challenge head on? Or do you want someone that's sat there in the hole, whinging, whining, crying, and complaining about the way that the world is? I know what my answer to that question is. So choose wisely. Be selective about the people you have around you. Number 4, ooh, listen to other people who complain. So ultimately, it's up to you to set the rules for the conversation. And as a coach, I deal with this quite a lot. If someone starts going on at me, I'll go, listen, is this one of those things where you just want to use me as a soundboard and complain to me? Or do you want me to help you? Because that conversation can then go a couple of different ways. So, and this is up to you as well, because you have the right to say, listen, if you want to use me as a soundboard, I'm not here for that. You can set the rules and shut that down straight away. Like, if you don't want to hear it, kill it. If it's someone, like, for me, if it's my wife, if she says and she starts going off on one, I can go, right, okay. I wouldn't even bother asking her the question, like, do you want to complain to me? Because sometimes it's pretty clear she just wants to complain. So I just go, okay, yeah, use me as a soundboard. That's fine. Like, there are different people that you can allow in your life to use you as a soundboard and just beat up on you a little bit and hit you with that complaint stuff, because you know that once it's there, it's out the system, the thoughts are out their head, they've stopped them from bouncing around all day long, and you can move on. Whereas I think the reason this is important is because we all know someone who just loves to complain for the sake of fucking complaining and getting attention. And I think that is part of the problem. So those are the people that you need to shut down. You need to say, right, okay, are you complaining for the sake of it? Or do you want to actually change something and figure it out? Because if you want to change something and figure it out, we're going to have a very different conversation than if you just want to complain. So ultimately, you need to make a decision. And you as a person, do not allow yourself to become somebody else's shit filter. That's not your job. Okay, it's up to you to define it. And ultimately, all of this is you taking charge and defining the situation and owning your own circumstances. Number 5, getting angry at someone else's behavior. So I think we've kind of touched on this as we've gone through. So this is where you need to observe the behavior of an individual and think, is it hurting the team? If it's hurting the team, you need to hold them accountable. Don't get angry, don't get upset, and don't confront them or hold them to account for their action or lack of action. Oh, what the fuck have I just said there? So if it hurts the team, hold them accountable. Don't get angry or upset, and never confront them. All right? That's what I meant to say. Don't get angry, upset, and never confront them and never hold them to account for their actions or lack of actions. If they're not doing something, or they are doing something which they shouldn't be doing, you have to hold them to account. You have to fix it. Don't consistently get wound up by it because that's your fault. That's your problem. They probably don't give a shit. They won't be getting angry or upset. So they ain't going to know. So if someone else is behaving in a manner that is irritating you, is upsetting you, is causing you aggravation, you have to say something, find a way to deal with it, and do it in a constructive manner. Do it in a way that is either going to make you better, make the team better, make performances better, or help them as an individual. And if they don't want to change, you might then have to escalate. You might then have to go and speak to a coach. You might have to speak to another, like a captain, or again a senior figure within the team, and maybe find someone that they will listen to that can be a positive influence. And I would suggest that, I think a lot of coaches know this, a lot of good coaches know this, but if you've got a bad egg or a bad apple in the bunch in the group, it only takes one bad one to ruin the team environment. You need to get rid of them. Doesn't matter how good they are as a player. If they are toxic with their mentality, their behaviors, and they're taking the piss, move them on. Doesn't matter how good they are, move them on, because they will hurt the team in the long run. Number 6, which one was this one? This was, you beat yourself up and belittle yourself frequently for bad behaviors. I use bad behaviors in quotations because you can define that any way you want. If there's something that I think, for me, if there's something that isn't useful to you, it's going to hold you back and slow you down. So that would be a bad behavior. Ultimately, look at this through the lens of you did it, so you control it. Go and fix it. It sounds like your problem. Go and sort it out. That's in your hands. Take ownership of yourself and be a grown-ass human being. Go and be a leader. Be an active participant in saving your own life and improving your own performance. Be the person that hold yourself to a much higher standard than anybody else would ever even think of. If you can do that, you'll be in a good position. So those are the 6 ways which you can absolutely screw yourself up, along with the 6 solutions. So don't frequently talk about your bad performances. Talk about your good ones. Someone else talks about your bad performances and you tune in, you're an idiot. Shut them down, move it on. Talk about a positive performance. Remind them of a time when you did perform. Ultimately, go out and show them in your next one. Show them who you really are. Show them what you're made of. Frequently complain. Don't do that. Complain once, go and fix it. Number 4, listen to someone else complain. Don't do that. Don't let them. Shut them down. Stop them. You control the conversation. If you're in it, you control it. Number 5, get angry at bad behavior. Fine, do it once, but go and fix it. Deal with it. Deal with the person that's causing the aggravation. Number 6, beat yourself down and belittle yourself for frequently bad behaviors. You own you. Go and sort yourself out. If you're aware of it, and this is where journaling and reflection is so important. I think I was speaking with Josh Riley about this in the previous podcast episode. If you don't journal frequently every single day, you are missing out on a massive dollop of self-awareness. And self-awareness is in very, very, very short supply at the minute. There is common sense is not common at all. It should be common knowledge. I think maybe common knowledge, would that be a good way to do it? No, uncommon knowledge. Uncommon knowledge, but practical knowledge. That's the way I'm going to refer to common sense. Ultimately, you control the situations, control your own destiny, be in charge of yourself, and work on yourself. That is literally everything we're here to do. Work on yourself and then be a positive influence on other people. Hopefully you found this episode the same. Hopefully you found it positive, influential, enlightening, and hopefully you're in the mood to go and do some journaling. Go and do it now. 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 wins, and then 5 things you're going to do tomorrow. Or 3 things you're going to do tomorrow. Don't know. Up to you. Make a plan. Make a plan and execute. Anyway, that is it from me for today's episode. I have no idea what my timeline is on this. I will be back next week. I think I've still got a couple of guests lined up in the pipeline, but the problem is I have like a monthly allowance of minutes, and then for every minute I go over that, it costs me. And because I'm a little bit stingy, I don't really want to go and do a month where I've got 10 hours worth of guests interviews lined up. So There might be a couple coming after Christmas. Anyway, until next time, train hard, work smart, and I will speak to you again soon. Lenko out.